We all want to feel peace in our lives. Peace in our choices, our beliefs, our relationships, and our environment. I've learned that this desired contentment is often found through holding on to less. When we pare down what we own, what we consume, and what we value, we're left with what's intentional, a personalized curation of what is important and true and useful to us. I'm Shannon Leyko, and you're listening to Paring Down, a podcast aimed at helping you declutter not only your home, but any area of your life that's overwhelming. Here, we're having interesting and honest conversations about the physical and mental clutter that drowns out what truly matters to each of us. And together, we'll learn how to pare it all down, not for the sake of perfection or becoming rigid, rather so we can move through life with less overwhelm and more joy, wisdom, and peace. Welcome back to Paring Down, everyone. I'm Shannon, and I'm so glad you're here. I'm so, shall I say, grateful that you're here. It's Thanksgiving week, and this week is all about gratitude on the podcast. I actually also have a blog post. If you guys don't read my blog, it can be just like a fun way to stay on track with your lifestyle and journey of living with less. So every Monday I release a blog post, and the one that I released yesterday is 5 ways to incorporate gratitude into decluttering. So it's a really great one. It kind of coincides with the episode that you're going to hear today, which also reminds me that if you haven't signed up for the Less Express, which is my weekly newsletter, that's another great resource for keeping you on track, just as like a gentle reminder in your inbox to live with less. Every week, I give you a little decluttering challenge. I offer a really inspirational quote. I tell you what's going on in the podcast, and I share something that I want to share with you. And a lot of times, it's what I wrote on the blog. So if you want to sign up for that, you can sign up in the show notes or go to theexpertbeginner.com, which is my website, and you can sign up there. Anyway, I wanted to tell you guys about that, but mostly I wanted to say I'm grateful for you. I hope you know how grateful I am for you. Whether you've left a review or not, I know that you're here, because I got my little analytics telling me the number of thousands of people that are tuning into Paring Down every single week, and it means the world to me. I think we have people from something like 80 different countries. Most of you are of the age range between 35 and 55 that are women, but if you're not in that category, I'm glad you're here too. I hope that this episode this week helps you kind of move through the next few weeks, maybe your whole life, with more gratitude in mind, because it's just a better way to live. And our guest today is someone who's really special. She is also a podcast host. She's host of Wannabe Clutter. That's a cute little name. And her name is Deanna Yates. I think you're really going to enjoy this conversation as we talk about how to approach decluttering from a place of gratitude rather than a place of like frustration and overwhelm, which are all very valid experiences when it comes to owning too much. But it's a happier experience decluttering when we're doing it from a place of gratitude instead of a place of like negativity. So we're going to talk about that today, and I hope that you enjoy this conversation. Deanna, thank you so much for coming on. It is such a privilege to have you. We had so much fun last time we talked for your podcast, so now we get to spread the wealth on mine.
I love it, Shannon. Thanks for having me.
Of course, of course. So as I was looking through my little schedule when we were getting you on the books, I realized that this episode is going to come out on Thanksgiving week. So when you and I are recording right now, it's not even Halloween yet. But we're going to do a big forward jump here. We're going to pretend that we are getting ready, getting our stretchy pants out of the drawer. We're getting ready for the turkey and focusing on Thanksgiving. So happy Thanksgiving, Deanna.
Happy Thanksgiving, Shannon. This is super
Do you have
fun.
any fun plans, by the way, for Thanksgiving this year?
I do. We're going to go to my parents. They've moved and they now live in Oklahoma, and it's going to be really fun because it's been at least 3 years since we have all been together at the same time. And so it's just going to be really nice.
Well, you know what? I jumped the gun a little bit. So would you back up and introduce yourself and kind of tell the people who you are and what you do?
Of course, of course. So my name is Deanna Yates, and like Shannon, I am also a podcaster. My podcast is called Wannabe Clutter, and I help busy families let go of the stuff that they don't need so that they can find freedom and just joy and peace in their own homes. And it's not about throwing it all out. It's not about stark white walls. It is just about finding what works for you and your family, because every family is unique. Every family has its own dynamic. But I find that when we have this moment of letting go of all that clutter, and clutter is stuff that doesn't help you. It is not stuff overall. It is the stuff that doesn't help you. What I find clutter, you might find useful, and what you find clutter, I might find useful and want to have in my home. So it is really not a one size fits all approach, but I think we work on a lot of mindsets and kind of the behind the scenes on why we have clutter. And kind of that's what I'm all about. So anyway, long story short, that's what I do in a nutshell. It is not who I am as a person all the time, but like that's a little bit more about what I do.
No, that's great. I think people can probably tell you and I get along. But isn't it funny though, that identity piece? I was thinking about that this morning, actually. Like, I get text messages relatively often from real life friends, but they talk to me about decluttering. They're like, oh, I was cleaning out my closet this morning, and they send me a picture or whatever it is. And I don't
Yeah.
think I anticipated starting a public platform about decluttering, of how much that would like become my identity. Like, people, that's what they
Totally.
talk to me about. And sometimes I have to remind my friends, I'm like, guys, that's my like public persona, and that's me. But it's also like, there's more to me than decluttering. I love it, but also
Yeah.
that's not my, I don't know, end all be all. Like, I'm interested in other things. Feel free to continue texting me about our children or anything else. Like, I love seeing your
Yes.
closets. That's great. However, like,
Yes.
you know, I used to date someone very briefly who's like big in the, this was, 12 years ago, in the relationship space, like on TV and all of that. And he would always be like, please try and remember that that's just what I do for my job. Like, don't worry,
Yeah.
I'm not like over analyzing and doing all these relationship techniques on us. And I was like, okay, that's good to know.
Yes. Well, actually, as you say that, that's what comes to mind, right? Like, I fear when I tell people what I do or, all of this kind of stuff, that they either are one, afraid to invite me over to their house because they're like, oh, my house is a mess. And I'm like, no, I want friends. Please, let's be friends. And two, they expect my house to be perfect all the time. And it is not. I am a human. Things happen.
Right.
And as we get into this gratitude thing, I think it was a perfect little reset for me, because gratitude is a practice, and it is one of those things where I can fall out of it too. Like, you and I, when I recorded for my show, I was just getting over bronchitis and pneumonia. It has whipped through our house. Like, our daughter had it first, then I got it. Now my husband has just been getting over it. So it's like, it has been a 6 to 7 weeks of fun in this house. And so to now have this conversation about gratitude, I'm like, girl, it's a struggle over here right now. I feel so out of it. I just, and so that is really what I want. Like, when people listen to my show or come into my world, it is a world of realism. Like, it is not unicorns and rainbows all the time. Like, it is real life happening over here, but also letting go of the stuff that we don't need, right? And why we've let go of some of the stuff. And we can get into like traveling and why I let go of stuff in the first place. But it really has allowed me to have these quicker moments of reset, right? Being able to say like, okay, I'm actually kind of struggling with gratitude. So I think it's really ironic that I'm going to go on a podcast today and talk about gratitude right now, because I'm kind of struggling in my own life. But it made me sit there and say like, okay, the hour before this, I was like, I'm going to walk around my house and I'm going to list the things I'm grateful for. And I'm going to list the things that I'm grateful for in my life. I am super grateful that we have modern medicine. 100 years ago, I might have died. Like, that's
Yes.
like real. Like, that's real life. Like, I might have died without the antibiotics that I got, and having a chest x-ray to know right away I had pneumonia when it was little, when it was small, when it was manageable, when I was still functioning.
Exactly.
So all these little things that, even though, yes, was that fun? No. Would I want to do it again? No. But I can find the gratitude and the happiness and have these quicker moments of like, okay, I can get back on track. Let's do this.
Yeah, that was the perfect segue, like, from the fact that, yes, we do have lives behind the scenes, of whatever our profession is. I'm sure doctors feel the same way too. My poor father-in-law, I rarely call him unless it's like, hey, there's this weird rash on my kid, because he's a family doctor.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And he's probably
Yeah.
like, okay, thanks. But, everyone with their profession, it's easy to kind of get lost behind whatever that is. But the
Mhm.
beauty of what we do when we do talk about decluttering, it can relate to anything. And it is amazing how it is this ripple effect of affecting the rest of our lives, everything from our state of gratitude to our patience to whatever it is, to who we are as a person. It does kind of become part of our identity, if only because it allows us more time and space to develop that identity because we're not bogged down by all of the housework and all of the stuff. So I appreciate you kind of leading with that honesty about your state of where you are with gratitude and some of those big things that you are grateful for. And let's backtrack though one more time because I
Yeah.
do think it's fun for people to hear kind of why living a clutter-free life became important to you. And so, would you
Yeah.
share your personal story of decluttering?
Sure. I'll share our little journey. So it started when our daughter, she's now 11. So when she was 1, my husband and I had a business and we were working from home. And every day was kind of the same. It was like, okay, I'm taking care of this newborn and we're just sitting in the same office and this is it. Like I go from the bedroom to her room to the office to, like to the kitchen. It's like, it's all right here. So when she was 6 weeks old, I remember like looking at her in my arms and being like, we could do this from anywhere. And I had a tendency in my life to like really like pendulum swing. Like I would go from one extreme to the other. So this was not a surprise to anybody in my personal life that I randomly had this wild hair. And so we decided, like my husband and I were both really sad that we hadn't done travel abroad, like study abroad when we were in college. So we're like, what if we traveled the world and did our business and had our baby? I mean, the 30s and the hormones are a real wild thing, right? Like, yeah, this sounds great. So we
What could
did.
go wrong?
So we did though. That's the thing. We spent a year selling basically everything we owned. Everything we kept fit in a 5x8 storage container, like one of those they bring it up to you pod things and you put your stuff in it and they store it for you. We had one of those. We sold our car, sold all sorts of we were into woodworking at the time, sold all the woodworking stuff. Um, at that point, we thought we would have another kiddo, so we kept baby stuff and things like that. And we traveled, so we did. Everything we owned was just in suitcases. We had one big suitcase, a diaper bag, and I think two backpacks. Two laptop bags.
Oh my gosh, wait, and how old was your baby?
She was 1 when we took off. It was just
Holy
after her first
moly.
birthday. And so we did Europe and we did a month at a time in a different country. And so that way we could rent an apartment, like we would rent a house or an Airbnb. And that way we could be established and learn kind of what it was like to live in that country. So we did England, we did a 10-day road trip in Scotland, we did Germany, Switzerland, Spain, and then we did a 7 days in Athens because we went to a blogging conference there with our little baby. And so,
Stop it.
yeah, that's what we did when she was 1. And that's what got us into getting rid of the stuff. But the point of when we became clutter free and more minimalist ish was when we came back to the States after 6 months, we bought a house and we didn't have anything, right? So all of our friends, so generous, so giving, were like, here, let's help you out. So they donated to us lots of things. We thrifted lots of things. We had this 3-bedroom house with a separate playroom to fill up. And so we did. We filled it, we did. And we did lots of house projects. And I love that kind of stuff. We redid the kitchen and, there was lots of good things that we did there. But looking around, all of a sudden we were now stressed in a different way, right? So obviously, traveling and living on the road with a newborn and no support system was stressful in one way, and running a business. But then when having the stress of all this stuff, that started to weigh on us in a different way. So when I got a job offer in Chicago with a company I'd worked with before, we jumped at the chance. So we moved back to Chicago. And at this point, we were downtown. So we live in a small apartment. You go from a 3-bedroom house in Des Moines, Iowa, where, money went further, to a smaller, apartment, kind of a micro scale, 2-bedroom. There wasn't any extra space. It's a teeny tiny living room. And we were more intentional then. That's when the intentionality really came in for us. So anyway, for anyone who's heard my story, apologies, you're hearing it again, but it is still the same. So
No, I
just
mean, it kind of
jump
makes
on
sense. It's
forward.
like a natural progression is like
Yeah.
you went through the decluttering process. You probably enjoyed the fact that you didn't have a
Mm-hmm.
bunch of decisions to make about your belongings when you were overseas. That's awesome.
Totally.
You come back, you might have had the intention of getting stuff out, but you hadn't yet explored what it means to be intentional about what you let back in. So
Yes.
then you go through that, especially with kids, like you said, with the playroom. I mean, things just, they get out of hand really
Oh
fast. And so I
man.
think a lot of times it's when we move, and especially if we're downsizing into a smaller place, is when we realize like this was too much in a bigger house, and now I feel like I'm drowning in a smaller house. I mean, so it's a
Mm-hmm.
natural progression. It makes perfect sense to me. And it's a super fascinating story. My goodness. I'm like, I mean, I love travel. That's why we have a camper van that we can drive
Oh
anywhere with
yeah.
2 beds in the back, and our family of 5 can fit in it. And so I love the idea of just picking up and going and living life on the road. Alas, my husband's in the Coast Guard, so we can't
Yeah.
exactly do our entire life on the road. But I do try every year or every time we PCS, which means it's your permanent change of station. They move you to wherever you're living next. I always try and get us to go somewhere like really exciting, because I love the idea of exciting places. But of course, this last time we
Yeah.
ended up in Florida, which is not the most exciting place.
Hey,
But we were in Alaska before here, and now I'm like, my fingers and toes are crossed that we get Australia. But we'll see. I mean, it's a long shot, but that's my goal. It's my goal for next summer.
amazing. Well,
Wouldn't
manifest
that?
that puppy. Come
I
on.
know, right? They're probably going to send us to like Oregon. It's fine.
That's all
Which would be
right.
cool too.
Yeah.
Okay, so anywho, I love your story. Thank you for sharing it. So let's now kind of go further into this idea of gratitude to kind of get our hearts
Yeah.
in that space. Now, of course, gratitude is something that hopefully we consider year round, because it is good for us. It is good for the world around us. It is a better way to move through life, right? Because it coincides with contentment and joy. But it is nice to have a specific day or season or time of year where it's traditional to slow down and actually consider what we're grateful for. So, when it comes to decluttering, how does taking a posture of gratitude help us in the decluttering process?
Oh man. Well, I think when people start to declutter, it's usually out of a point of frustration, right? I can't find what I need. I'm so frustrated. All of this stuff is everywhere. So I think we don't think of decluttering when we're happy, right? We don't think about it when we're grateful, because at that point you're not, there's no rub. There's no like moment of frustration, because when things are good, status quo stays the same. And so for me, I look at these hard times as a time of growth and a time of opportunity to, you know, either get to the next level, quote unquote, in my life, or get to a new place of freedom, or just kind of a better mindset about life. So I think when we can come at it more from a place of gratitude and take a pause. So, like, oh my gosh, I'm so frustrated. Look around this house. It's so messy. Right? That's usually how people come at it. They're so frustrated. They tripped over something. They just want it fixed now, right? I'm having that moment, right? I can just feel those, like that feeling come up for everybody. Taking a pause, taking a breath, and thinking about it from what you actually enjoy in your house is going to help you avoid that recluttering stage. Gratitude can help you avoid making those pendulum swings, right? It can help you avoid that moment of, I'm throwing it all out, and your family getting that look of horror on their face when mama's having a bad day. Like, I don't know about you, but there are moments where I used to have a really bad day and just be like, I can't take it anymore. So we don't want to scare our families into letting go of stuff. We want to have a moment of like, okay, pause, be curious about it, be grateful for it. Think about like what this stuff has allowed you to do in your life. Why did you get it in the first place? And by taking a moment to be grateful for it, I am so grateful for, I'm trying to look around my desk. I don't have much stuff on my desk, so it's hard for me to pick things up. But I am grateful for like the things I have on my desk. I have this little, and it's broken, so I just have it because it's so sweet. It's our daughter's handprint when she was in preschool, and it was like a little trinket. but it's all broken. So I put some felt on the back so it can stay together because it's lovely. And so I put my little trinkets and things that need to stay here. A rock she brought me, like this little tiny rock she brought me. She loves little treasures. She's like a little, what are the birds? The magpies. She brings me little treasures and trinkets. She's 11. And, I have a dongle for like my headphones. I have a, thing for my computer and then like a USB stick. But this is what's on my desk, right? So I am grateful for her little handprint, even though it's broken. I'm grateful that she brings me these little things because I can, rub it and it gives me a moment to think about her while she's at school. Like, what am I grateful for on here? And then finding the things that you're not grateful for that don't spark any emotion for you and saying, okay, that's what I can let go of. Those things that either if they spark a negative emotion for you, letting go of those. But if they spark a positive emotion, keeping them for now and looking at decluttering in a layered system, right? It's not something that we are going to, please do not try to do a one and done approach. Please do not try to have the giant weekend declutter session. I don't know about your audience. My audience is moms. We're busy. We've got lots going on. I don't have 12 hours of uninterrupted time. Nobody in my house wants to declutter for 12 straight hours, myself included. So we have to do it in smaller spurts. We have to just take little moments to do it. But looking at it from a perspective of like, okay, what am I grateful for? What has this stuff allowed me to do? What is it that I was hoping to do with this stuff? Why did I buy the stuff in the first place? What was it underlying this stuff that made me think it would make my life easier, that made me think this was something that would bring joy into my home? Because you'll find a thread that leads through that, right? So if it's something that like, I bought this organization container because I thought it was just going to make things easier for me, but now it's overflowing or it didn't fit in a space, can I let go because it didn't actually fulfill the dream that I have for it, right? It didn't fulfill the fantasy that I had built up in my head. If I just got this thing, it would fix this problem. So looking at it from that perspective, I feel like I'm getting a little off on the why we like gratitude fits into this. So feel free if you'd like to pull me back in with something.
Actually, I'm hearing some really, really valuable things. I think the first big takeaway there is that when we approach decluttering with gratitude, it's a healthier and happier experience. When we declutter, like you said, it can often come from a place of frustration. First of all, that's not going to make the process any fun. So you're not going to want to keep doing it. It's going to really end up slowing you down. And also, we're not punishing ourselves. That I think it's important to look at all the stuff, like you said, and say, I'm not an idiot for having acquired all of this, right? I'm grateful that past me was thoughtful about what she thought future me would need. And maybe she made a mistake. Maybe future me didn't need that. But I'm so grateful that she thought that was going to work well. And it's clear that, I think that taking that mindset, not only does it make the process less of a drag, but it also allows you to kind of get out of that state of shame about your house and shame about yourself, and instead say, I know I was doing the best I was at the time when I let this in. And now I know better. I want to do better. I want to be more mindful, but I can still be grateful for the way I was trying to take care of myself in the past. I think that when we see our stuff with an idea of gratitude, like you said, it does. The other big thing I heard is that it stops the consumption piece of bringing more clutter back into your house, because when you're grateful for the things you have, and you're grateful even for the lessons you've learned when decluttering, of learning like, oh, I'm wasting money when I buy these kinds of things. I don't feel good when my room is full. Like, we can be grateful for the quote mistakes we've made because they help us in the future. A lot of times we'll never learn unless we make a mistake. So we can look at those mistakes and be grateful for them. And sometimes decluttering can feel like looking at a bunch of mistakes, but the reality of it is that is a really powerful notion to help you move forward in a way that's better in life, But when you look around and you're grateful for what you have, you're not comparing yourself to other people. You are not going to start consuming more things, because you want more and more, right? When you're grateful, that leads to contentment. So I think that those are the two big things that I really took away. I loved your answer. I loved all of that. It's very realistic. I am a hermit by nature, and even if I'm not in the house, I just want to be comfortable. Maybe I'm old. Maybe I'm old and a hermit, but I want to be comfortable and I want to be cute. I want to be a cute hermit. And that's where Cozy Earth comes into play for me because they have the cutest, but also most comfortable clothing that you can ever put on your little body. And I'm going to tell you about it right now. Now, I'm not advocating for wearing pajamas in public, but if you're going to be caught in pajamas in public, get caught in the stretch knit long sleeve bamboo pajama set from Cozy Earth. These are amazing for just like lounging around the house and enjoying those cherished moments of relaxation and quiet if you're anything like me. But you can also go find actual lounge clothes that are like meant for outside of the home at cozyearth.com. If you have too much pride to wear pajamas in public, which is fair, I actually salute you. And if you are in full hermit mode and you just like to stay in bed as much as possible, like me on a Saturday morning, that's when the bamboo sheet set comes into play. I love our Cozy Earth sheets. And honestly, it does not help me wanting to get out of bed. Now, I don't know if that's a pro or a con for you, but it should be a pro. You should want sheets that make you want to stay in bed. Just try not to be late for work. Now, you are not the only one that gets to benefit from Cozy Earth's bamboo pajamas, bamboo sheets, and all of their other wonderful soft clothing and bedding. If you are trying to think of what to get that person who already has everything, you know what they don't probably have? The best bed sheets of all time. Get them the bamboo sheet set or get them some pajamas because everybody wants cozy pajamas. And you can do that by going to cozyearth.com/pairing, PARING. There's no I in pair. And use my exclusive 40% off code pairing to give the gift of luxury this holiday season. If you get a post-purchase survey, say that you heard about Cozy Earth from this podcast. So go ahead and wrap the ones you love in luxury with Cozy Earth. And that person just might be yourself. And then on the other side of the coin, once we've already decluttered, so not necessarily the decluttering process or looking around at the abundance of things in our home, but once we've already decluttered, in that state, how does living with less now make you more grateful? So it's the other side of the coin. So we've just talked about how being grateful helps you declutter, but now how is being decluttered help you be grateful?
Yeah. Well, I think it puts life into perspective. I think it just gives you an entire perspective shift on, oh, I didn't actually need all that stuff, right? Just like we were able to travel for 6 months with a suitcase, right? And we even had like a crib that would fit in our suitcase. There's all sorts of like things. If you figure out what it is that you actually need and want, like what is it that you value? That's the process of decluttering, right? Like I said at the beginning, it's not a one size fits all approach. So I can't give you a list of like, this is what you need in your house to be happy. You have to do the work, right? You have to look at it and say like, what is it that I need? And if you do that, if you do the work, the introspective work of looking like, how does our family use this house? What is the vision we have for it? What do we like to do on the weekends? Do we like to entertain? Are we more homebodies? What is it that, how would this house actually function for us? And your stuff should function for you and your family. You are not a slave to your stuff. Your stuff should be doing the work for you. That's why we have less of it, because the more of it we have, the more we're working for our stuff and managing and maintaining it and having that mental capacity to keep track of it and all that stuff. So by having less, you now look around your house and say, yeah, all right, it's working for me, right? My stuff is actually doing the stuff, doing what it is supposed to do. My coffee maker helps me make coffee in the morning. My kitchen is clean. I know where my stuff is. I can get my knives out of my drawer. They're lined up. So I know exactly what knife I need to make dinner tonight. I'm going to go grab that. I'm not worried about sticking my hand in a drawer and cutting myself because I have a sharp things drawer, right? I think that's one thing like I have in my kitchen that I love. Like all of our sharp things go in this drawer. So I know that like I don't have to worry about sticking my hand in and getting a knife or something
I
like
like that category, the sharp category.
sharp things. Danger. But like it just allows you to have that moment of peace. And because you don't have all the stuff, it's not constantly like weighing on you that you need to do something. It allows you to be grateful and enjoy the stuff you have, knowing that it is what you need and feel confident about that going forward because I've chosen the things that are here.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, decluttering really what it is on a bigger picture, and why, like, I use the term paring down, is
Yeah.
because it's intentionality. You're purposefully choosing what you're keeping. Therefore, you can look around your house and you're so grateful for each thing you have because you know why you have it. You know exactly why you're grateful for it, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm just like imagining just my hallway, which doesn't have that much in it. But I specifically chose the pictures that are on the wall instead of
Hmm.
having every single family photo we've ever taken. I
Yep.
pared down what I'm displaying. And so I love the pictures that are on the wall. Even we have
Hmm.
like an entryway kind of a table that I keep as bare as possible. But on it is a little basket, and that's where we keep our Bibles. It's because I don't know about you, but for many years, it was Sunday morning. We just run around the house looking for our Bibles. Those are kinds of things that don't normally have a home. And I was like, Bibles are a wonderful thing to display. I don't mind my Bible being right there. And so we have this cute basket that's where everyone's Bible is, including the kids, and my notebook, and even just down to I have the only other thing on that bench. Well, there used to be two plants, and those recently got broken during a very exciting game
Mm.
of hide and go seek in our house recently. But so
Yeah.
that one plant is gone. So we are down to this one kind of like taller jar with these like feathery looking pink things in it, and I love it because I don't have much decor that's not personalized, like
Mm.
either a photo, like a large canvas,
Yeah.
or something that we have a painting of our backyard in Alaska, like things that say only the
Love
Lakos would
it.
have this in their house. But that one is kind of like a more world market kind of a thing, but I love it. I love the light pink. I'm like a pink person. I finally embraced that in my life, right? Like, and it's floaty and it's airy and it matches every single season. I don't have to like change it out what's in that pot every single season, and it's fake, so I don't actually have to do anything to it. And I love it. And so I can look around my house from everything from the pictures on my walls to maybe a random decor piece like that to the more functional items, whatever's in my drawer in the kitchen, and being like, oh, I use this mashed potato masher all the time. Or I look at my toaster and I'm like, I make my kids their fresh sourdough toast every single day in that toaster. And that gratitude comes so much more naturally because we've been intentional about why we have the stuff in the first place, instead of walking into your closet and being so like, oh, I have nothing to wear. I have all these clothes everywhere. Nothing fits right, or I don't like anything in here, right? That's not a state of gratitude. But when you've been intentional about what's
Yep.
left in your closet, you walk in and you're so excited. Oh, I'm so excited to put on that pink dress. It feels so cute. I can't wait to get dressed in the morning. And that gratitude comes so much more naturally. So yeah, I've experienced the same thing. Like you said, when your house is working for you, it just makes you happier to be there, and that is
Totally.
gratitude. That is what gratitude is. So, would you share maybe some specific ideas of gratitude practices we can do, specifically maybe related to our belongings or our space, something that
Sure.
you incorporate into your own life to make sure that you're moving through the world with a lighter, more grateful spirit?
Yeah. So, one thing, I mean, let's go back to what I did before this episode, right? Where I was really in a funk because it's been a couple weeks, and things do not feel super great. I just take a moment and I remind myself of how lucky I am, right? There are so many good things in my life. So, if you are having a moment and you're sitting in your house and you're not feeling this whole gratitude thing, and I'm probably, as this is coming out, you're feeling a little bit better because it is Thanksgiving, and so you're having a moment. You've all sat around the table, you've all probably gone around and said something that you were thankful for or grateful for. Let's try to be honest this year with that. I think sometimes people just say what they think everyone else wants them to say. If you could at your table this year say, look, we're all grateful for each other. We're all grateful for the relationships and everything we have in our lives. Let's think of something that you are selfishly grateful for. I'm so grateful for the hammock chair that we have sitting out in our backyard. We live in San Diego. I'm still able to go sit in that hammock chair right now. I am so grateful for the fact that I can sit here and have a conversation with you halfway around the country. I mean, like all the way on the other side of the country, right?
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
we can have this conversation. And I have met so many amazing people through my podcast. I am so grateful that this is one of my big ones because I hate grocery shopping. So when I'm sitting in the grocery store or I'm making my list, and I have a moment of just like frustration. I am so grateful that I do not have to grow the chickens and kill them and pluck them and all the and gut them and do the thing and carve them and all the things that would have to go into having chickens, a long time ago. So it is all these teeny tiny little things. I think we can get lost in the fact that we need to be grateful for all these big things. But if you can start being grateful for the littlest things and find a way to turn the thing that annoys you, like the chore that annoys you, like if you hate doing laundry, let me tell you, I am so grateful I have a machine in my garage that washes my clothes for me.
That is such a great skill to have, is like when you're annoyed or feeling frustrated, immediately turn to gratitude. And that's a good way to look at our stuff in a grateful way. Like we can find gratitude anytime. Like when I'm like, I just
Yeah.
don't want to read a book to my daughter tonight. Like she's been a pain in my little hiney and I don't want to sit down and read her a book. She's going to complain about whatever book I pick. And then when I pick the book, she's going to want to turn the pages and she's going to try and you make it stretch out because she doesn't want to get to bed. And I'm exhausted and I want to just get, right? Like all of that. I sit down in the rocking chair with her on my lap and I'm like, I'm so grateful for this comfy, cozy rocking chair with an ottoman that I get to put my feet up. Like getting specific about the things
Yeah.
in our space that help us move through the world more easily. So we can be grateful for our stuff, grateful for the little things we do have in life. But then at the same time, what are you grateful for when it comes to having chosen to live a decluttered life? I'm curious where that comes up for
Mm.
you, how that plays into your gratitude on maybe a bigger scale.
Yeah. So, on a bigger scale, having less stuff has allowed us to do things like travel. I mean, let's just even like we can go back to that. This summer, we went and spent 4 weeks in Europe. We did it again. Like, we kept our place this time. Like, our daughter is 11, and my husband and I love watching Amazing Race. And
Oh,
she,
me
for the
too.
longest time, oh,
Love
I
that
love it.
show.
We applied to be on it when we were in our 20s and didn't get it. But anyway, I love that show so much. However, our daughter is like, I don't want to watch it. And I'm like, but you actually enjoy it when we do watch it. What we figured out the rub was she loves it here. So she is afraid that when we watch the show, we're going to get another wild hair and be like, oh, we should go live there. And I'm like, I promise we're not moving. Like, I promise. Because we moved around a lot before she started school. And we did we did a year and a half when she was 5. So she did kindergarten in Germany.
Oh, wow.
So yeah,
Cool.
so let me just throw that back in there. So she is really nervous that we will just be like, we're going to go live over here. And we're like, no, 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 no. Like, we're settled. We love it here. We absolutely love where we live. And you have a great friend group and we love your schools and we're not going anywhere. So it's like now, once you figured out why she was nervous about it, it's better. Okay. So but that's what being clutter free has allowed me to do. It allows me to have these moments of more introspection and reflection. It gives me that peace and that space to think about things more curiously, like with more curiosity, to have that moment of like, why is it that she doesn't want to watch this show that she does seem to enjoy when we watch it? But so just to have a little bit more understanding, it has given me so much more insight into myself because I don't just band-aid over things with stuff. And it allows us to do things like, I want to start a podcast. Okay, what do I need to do that? Like, what are the bare minimum things I would need to do that, right? Instead of having this, like, I have to have the perfect setup and I have to have it all planned out and I have to do all these things. Like, knowing that I can live with a lot less means that I just start things more freely. It just gives me this, like, why not try? Why not? And I have more curiosity and more ability, more capacity to do different things than I would if I felt bogged down by all the stuff and overwhelmed all the time by the stuff. So, does that answer your question?
It certainly does. Yeah, I think it is so true. It's so funny. I often wonder because I was right there with you. I was like, oh, yeah. Through decluttering, it does give me broader perspective, more patience, more curiosity to have these deeper relationships and have these harder conversations with my loved ones. And I can imagine listeners being like, why does decluttering have anything to do with that? But it's something you really discover is that through the decluttering process, you get to know yourself so much better that that transfers into your relationships. I've absolutely seen how I have more bandwidth, more emotional bandwidth to ask the hard questions, to be curious, to learn about other people, because I've spent so much more time learning about myself when I reevaluate what's truly important to me. Because once you get through the stuff, and as you move through the stuff, you start to realize that the decisions you're making about your stuff are a reflection of your greater values, right? And then you start thinking about your greater values and what is important to you. And so all of these questions snowball into this self-awareness that is so much deeper than when you started. And with self-awareness comes a different kind of awareness for the rest of the world as well. So, it's funny as you're saying that, I was like, yep, that makes sense to me. And then beyond that, when you were talking about how you just were able to start the podcast, I've never actually really made that connection, which is so cool to me, is that I'm a go-getter as well. In fact, like literally in middle school at summer camp, I got the Make It Happen award because I guess that I just would make things happen, right? And that's kind of always been part of my personality. But you make a great point that by not having everything or feeling the need to have everything, it actually lessens any sort of perfectionism that could hinder your desire to move forward or your ability to move forward, because we're now moving through life without it trying to be perfect. I'm not trying to have every last gadget that makes my life the absolute easiest. I'm like, I'm just going to use a knife to cut my apples, and I'm going to use that same knife to cut my strawberries. I don't need a strawberry corer, and I don't need an apple thing. Actually, I shouldn't even say that. We have a strawberry corer because my husband's obsessed with it. But I will say, for me, if I wasn't married to my sweet, wonderful husband who has a different threshold for things than me, I would not have a strawberry corer in my life. Okay. But anyways, like, we're not trying to have every single thing be met perfectly. We're just going to hop on with a microphone and a computer and go from there and be more intentional on the backside of things, rather than over consuming at the front and then finding out that we don't need half the stuff we bought. It's like we start with a little, and yes, you can add on once you see the actual need, but that's being a mindful consumer. That is slowing down. That's intentional living. And I've never really put it together like you did, that is a big perk of being able, or that allows you, I should say, to then be able to jump into new things with gusto and excitement. And it doesn't mean you're not prepared. It just means, like you said, you're not being stuck in perfectionism.
And I love that you were being honest and open there about, like, just keeping it real. Like, you know what? We actually do have a strawberry thing. I don't use it, so I don't even think about having it.
Right. Well, what's funny is, like, this goes back to having people in the house, because I'm sure people come into my house and they're like, well, why do you have X, Y, and Z here? And sometimes I just want to, like, a disclaimer on the door is that more than Shannon Leyko lives here. You're right. If you came to my house and I was a single person, you better believe you'd walk in here and there would be, it would probably reflect this podcast more accurately. But you know what? I live with 3 kids and a husband, and my husband and my oldest son they're stuff people. And as much as they've grown, especially my husband, of course, and, they've changed their perspective on a whole lot. At the end of the day, they've landed in different thresholds than me. And I'm not going to, like, prioritize my love of decluttering over my relationships. I'm not going to like throw the strawberry corer in the trash and disrespect my husband when he loves that darn little strawberry corer, I don't know if that's just a word for it, but you know what I mean. So anyways, it is funny. I'm always like, when people come over, I feel like I almost need to be defensive of, like, the things I have in my house, which is, kind of silly. But at the same time, I'm also confident in it because I feel great about our house. So there is that. So let's dive into the 2 questions that I ask everyone at the end of every episode. And the first is, what is something you are currently paring down?
Well, in light of work things, I am trying to pare down just how my processes. I am actually actively paring down my processes. I have gotten sick 4 times this year. And I think it is my body, as I'm now getting over this one, I think it's my body telling me I have to slow down. I have a lot of I'm an idea person. I love starting new things. I get so jazzed up on the start. And I'm working really hard on finishing what I start. And so now I'm trying to be a lot more mindful about what it is that's actually on my plate. I'm actually giving up things that I have started or have said I was going to do. And, like, after some introspective, I've just been like, that doesn't actually sit well. Like, I don't actually feel super jazzed up about that. Like, I'm super excited about the idea of starting it, but do I think I could finish it to my full capability with what I have going on right now? And some of the answers are no. So there are things that I am actively paring down and letting go of in my business because the stress and the amount of stuff I've been doing has probably been what is causing me to get sick so much this year when I have never been this sick before in my life. So that is something I'm actively paring down.
I appreciate that answer so much because I feel it in my bones, right? And it's hard not to get distracted by what other people are doing and being like, I want to do that too. You know, like I see people doing these different guides and these different workshops, these different challenges online. And I'm like, oh, that would be so fun. And like, all of that. But then I'm like, what are my goals? I have to reel that in, right? Like my goal is to get a book deal, and my goal, I love the podcast, right? Like there are things that are just going to look different than what other people are doing. And it doesn't mean that I wouldn't have fun doing it, or that, like you said, it wouldn't be great, but we can't do it all. And so you got to pare down your choices when you're a creative person. And I think that's great. I also appreciate that it's a hard choice. You know, sometimes we talk about decluttering our lives or paring down our schedules or whatever from a place of like, oh, that's easy to let go. Just think of what you don't want to do. But sometimes we have to make hard choices when we're doing this too, from the greater perspective of how is this actually, how does this look in my life, like from a high level, you know, and it can be hard in the moment to let things go. So I appreciate that. Okie dokie. And last thing is, what is something that you are looking forward to right now?
So I am just looking forward to like really finishing out this year strong. Like I feel like honing it all back in and doing that refocus of like, what do I really want this next year to look like? And I spend my entire December kind of mapping that out. Like I really will do some brainstorming and like some real deep inner, like that's what I'm looking forward to this year. Because I did that a little bit last year, but like this year, I really want to be purposeful and intentional and like map out where I want and what I want to happen next year. Because again, I got lots of ideas. So where can I fit those, and being intentional with that? Because maybe I'm not going to be able to do it all. And if I try to do it all, I'm going to have another year like this where I've been sick 4 times, and it doesn't help anybody. My body will slow me down if my mind doesn't. So I got to really be intentional about it.
Yay, I love planning. I get that. That's something to look forward to. I'm the same way, because it's like you get to look forward to dreaming and planning and thinking ahead and like being excited about life. And there's nothing better to look forward to than that. So, all right. Well, Deanna, thank you so much for being here. Would you let everyone know where they can find you, listen to your podcast, follow along online, all the good stuff?
You got it. It's Wannabe Clutter Free. So that's where I am. Wannabe, like the Spice Girls song. And so that's where I am. That's my podcast. I have an episode come out every week on there. And that's my Instagram handle, which is where I am the most active. So come on over, join in the conversation. Love to have you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Deanna. I will make sure that all of that is in the show notes for everybody. And I hope that you have a lovely Halloween/Thanksgiving.
Thank you. You too, Shannon.
You just listened to an episode of Paring Down with me, Shannon Leyko. If you enjoyed the show, it would mean the world if you can leave a review wherever you listen and share this episode with a friend. Those reviews really are what keeps a podcast on its feet for the long haul, and I will read every single one with a huge smile on my face. So thank you ahead of time. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to hit subscribe. Also, be sure to follow along on Instagram at paring_down, where I offer lots of tips and inspiration for paring down, along with what's new here on the podcast. Till next time.